It's totally normal for teens to be concerned about their image, and in these years when they're still trying to figure out who they are, it's also normal for their self-esteem to take a dip. Still, it's important for teens to develop healthy self-esteem, which we define as their overall sense of personal value and self-worth. Experts warn that low self-esteem in teens can create anxiety, stress, loneliness, hurt friendships and academic performance, and increase the likelihood of early sexual activity, depression, and substance abuse. And what about teens with positive self-esteem? It's simple. Research shows they are overall healthier and happier. So, what about your teen? In the next 15 minutes, 4 experienced youth leaders and experts in Colorado give us a bit of a quick primer on teen self-esteem, helping us parents and other adults understand more about what's going on and how we can help.
Some possible things that could be something that someone might see if a teen is struggling with self-esteem could be avoiding social situations with peers or adults or, more than usual.
If your youth is isolating themselves, then typically something's off because we're very social creatures. And even those of us that like to hang out and be homebodies, even then we still have friends, we still have people that we reach out to and that we talk to. So if you're noticing isolation, that's a really huge one.
One of the big ones that we see very often is self-deprecating jokes. Millennials are kind of known for that, and Gen Z has sort of perfected the art of making it sound very funny, making it sound very lighthearted and not a big deal. When in reality, these self-deprecating jokes can kind of indicate that they're doing some really deep thinking about their self-esteem. It could be they, admonish themselves when they drop something, and it could be that they're thinking of themselves as like a failure for making one small mistake. So when we notice these self-deprecating jokes happening, it's good to just kind of pause and be like, hey, was that really a joke, or is there like something deeper going on here? Also
the appearance. If they have a typical style of clothing, or if they have a typical thing that they're doing, and they've gone more conservative with their clothing, they've gone less adventurous. That may also be another huge warning sign, as clothing is a way that we really do get to express ourselves. And if we're trying our best to make sure that nothing's seen, or if that we're completely covering everything up, then there may be something that we're hiding or something that we don't feel confident about within ourselves.
I know we're going to talk a little bit about social media, but I think looking for a lot of social validation from sources like social media, other peers, other folks, in a different way than what you've seen in the past with a young person.
They could very well be comparing themselves to others, and just knowing how they talk about the people that they follow on social media, how they talk about the people they admire on social media, how they talk about, makeup influencers or bloggers. Are they talking about them like, hey, this person's really cool and I want to be like them? Or are they saying more like, I wish I were like them and I'm not and I hate that? Being really aware of the language that they're using in talking about these things is important.
Oftentimes I think folks think about like, oh, it's about being shy or withdrawn or something like that. But another, self-esteem challenge having a challenge with self-esteem can also result sometimes in bullying behavior or attempts to, control or manipulate others as a way to kind of generate a feeling of more confidence or having power over other folks.
So I want to start by saying social media is really complex and teen self-esteem is really complex. And while there are a lot of correlational studies saying things like, oh, the amount of time spent on social media is correlated with lower self-esteem, or the amount of time spent on social media is correlated with body image issues, it's really hard scientifically to disentangle and say that that is definitely the cause, right? And so with that in mind, what we do know is that this is a new technology that allows teens to check on their sort of standing to do social comparison in a quantified way. And I think that you could definitely say that that's not great for self-esteem, to be able to at any moment, 24/7, pull a device out of your pocket that allows you to check how you're standing in the social hierarchy. And I'm talking about things like comparing Instagram like counts, looking at your Snapchat streaks, right? This thing that allows us to quantify where we stand socially. That's new and probably isn't great for self-esteem. But you can take other examples of using the same technology, the same social media platforms, and you're a young person who's having an isolated experience of something related to your identity, let's say LGBTQ in a rural area, and now you're using that same technology, that same device, same platforms to find other young people who are having that shared lived experience. Now that's suddenly using that same technology in a way that's really good for your self-esteem, that makes you feel connected, that makes you feel less alone. And so I think it's an oversimplification to try to say social media is either good or bad for self-esteem. It's about how we use these technologies and what types of interactions and connections young people are finding. So if parents are justifiably concerned about the time their kids are spending on their phone, kids are spending on social media, there are things you can do about that. And I want to say it's not all doom and gloom, right? There are conversations you can have with your kid that are going to help. And so I think a lot of the approach that parents initially take is kind of regulation based. They're putting them to put a timer on it, and you got to put your phone down, or you can't have your phone during these certain times. And while there's some value to that, I think what can be even more valuable is educating your kid about how these platforms work, the business models behind them, and how the algorithms work. So just having a conversation with your kid to see if they even understand the idea that they're giving away their time for free to a huge corporation. Additionally, having a conversation with your kid about how these algorithms work, right? The algorithm that controls what you see in your social media feed. And they tend to funnel you toward more extreme content. So let's take the YouTube algorithm, for example. And you're going to just watch a couple fitness videos because you want to be healthy and you want to get in shape. And that's an admirable goal that arguably would be great for your self-esteem. Good. And you do that. And now the algorithm recognizes, oh, they want fitness content. Oh, we have lots of fitness content. And then they funnel you down into this sort of fitness rabbit hole where suddenly you're getting things that are about dietary restriction, and it can get all the way to pro-anorexia. Right? And all you started doing was watching a couple fitness videos. And so what I'm encouraging is there are settings and things you can change. Like on Instagram, you can say no more like this. I don't want to see this anymore. And so your young person can learn through this conversation that they have agency. They can have an empowered relationship of realizing, actually, this doesn't make me feel good. Following this account makes me feel bad about myself. Following this particular hashtag makes me feel less than, right? And they have a choice to train the algorithm to say, no, this isn't who I am and this isn't what I want to see. And so I think those types of conversations can be really empowering rather than saying, put it down and stop, saying, okay, well, how is that making you feel? And really having these conversations about education so that our young people can have really healthy, empowered relationships. And then also acknowledging that their digital relationships are real relationships, right? So if they're having a Snapchat conversation with somebody from school, that's a real relationship, and that you respect that and understand that. And it's not, oh, we're going to shame them and make them feel bad about it, but rather giving them the tools so that they can have really healthy digital relationships. And so if you want to start having these conversations with your kid, but you feel intimidated, maybe you don't have the language for that, we've included links to resources below that have specific social media platforms and settings you can change in those platforms to help your young person have a healthier, more empowered relationship with social media. And so we encourage you to check that out.
Another thing that would play into a teen's self-esteem are just some simple home factors. Some of those things around, obviously basic diet. If they're not getting the proper nutrition that they need, that's obviously going to affect their mind. If they're not getting the necessary sleep that they need, that will also play into it. Another one is the opportunities that they have found a way to get into. If they have not found anything that seems like it's challenging them, if they've not found something that seems like it's that it's going to bring them joy in their life, that might definitely hurt their self-esteem. As we're always constantly looking for new things, we're always constantly looking for opportunities to challenge and for us to grow, even teens, especially teens, in fact.
Another thing that impacts the teen's self-esteem is parents. The way that we see our parents talking about themselves, the way we see our parents talking about other people, and the way we interact with our parents shapes so much of how we view ourselves. For instance, if someone is constantly doing negative self-talk to themselves and their young person sees that, they may just assume okay, this is the way that, my mom talks to herself. So this is probably the way that I should form my own internal conversations. And that can happen very subconsciously. It's not a conscious thought. And so it's not as easy as saying, do as I say, not as I do, because they're going to model the behavior that they're seeing. Similarly, if a parent or other important family member is making comments about others, then the young person might see that. If, say, for instance, someone makes a very fat-phobic joke, right, then that can really get into a kid's mind and be like, well, then I'm not allowed to be like this. And that can be really damaging. So we really need to be aware of how we're talking in front of you, because that modeling is really how they're going to base their actions in the future. It's a small part of it, but it is a part of it.
Their overall academic experiences of success or lack thereof can be impactful on self-esteem for students, as well as, identities, privileged or marginalized identities that people hold can impact, for positive or negative self-esteem, right? There's a lot of messages that folks get from all over the place, right? Media, relationships, things like that, dealing with, race, gender identity, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, disability, religion, citizenship status, conforming or not to beauty standards, gender roles, other types of social expectations that might exist. It's like the air we breathe and, the water we swim in is, messages that we get about ourselves based on our identities that have nothing to do with, our choices often.
Try to do things that your youth likes to do. Try to find a way to do it with them. Try to find a way to let them know that there are people interested in what they're interested in. Because when they feel like there's a common interest, those walls go down. And so they give you the real uncut answer. When they give you the real uncut answer, don't shame them, validate that answer, let them know that their experiences and what they're feeling are real. And then follow up on that. Don't just let that be the end there.
Try to emphasize activities and behaviors rather than who they are as people. So when you're talking to them and they're saying I think I'm a bad person, you can say, you made a mistake, or this one thing was not a great decision. But here are some ways that we can make better decisions in the future. Here are some ways we can learn from this mistake. It's just really important to show them ways of coping with those negative feelings, because we're all going to have negative feelings and we're all going to make mistakes and we're all going to feel really bad about ourselves. But being able to cope and reframe those is really important. And that's a skill that takes a long time to develop. So if you can start that with your child now, then that is super helpful.
If an adult is saying, well, yeah, I just, never learned math either. So sorry, you're probably going to suck at math because I did too. And it's just in your genetics, right? That's probably not going to help the self-esteem of that student, right? Versus, I always struggled with math too, but, something that I even now keep trying to work on is just trying different things and not giving up. And, it doesn't come easy to me either, but, I think that there's always more things we can do to help us grow. And there's also a lot of research that, teens, adults, everyone wants to remember positive feedback and wants to absorb positive feedback about themselves more so than critical feedback. So, even in my life, it's surprising to me how much I remember positive things that a teacher or a parent told me when I was young. And I have had the experience as well of working with a young person 10 years ago and having them come back to me and say, do you remember when you told me this about myself? That has helped me through college when you said that I'm someone who really can, argue my case successfully and like make a great point, whereas other people told me that I should stop arguing all the time and getting in fights.
If you're a parent and you've noticed that your teen or your preteen is rejecting some of your attempts to be, affirming and proud and complimentary, it may not mean that they don't enjoy that kind of language and that kind of intention. It may just be that they just aren't used to accepting compliments. It's really difficult for a lot of us to accept affirming language, even as adults, and especially if a young person isn't used to having those kinds of interactions where they're very explicitly told, I'm proud of you and I love you. That can be really difficult for them to process. So if your teen says like, oh, that's too emotional, or, oh, don't say that, that's embarrassing, it doesn't mean that they're not internalizing it. It just means that like that's their defense mechanism to not feel super vulnerable in that moment. But it's still important to try to say those things and to make room to affirm them, to compliment them, to tell them how proud you are of them. Because even if they don't tell you right in the moment, later on, that is going to make a really big difference for them.
At the end of the day, that's all that a lot of us really need, is just that reminder that we are loved, that reminder that there is someone out there that cares about us. And if we can constantly do that, we can constantly enforce that, then they're going to find people around them, their age, who do those exact same things, who reinforce those traits, who reinforce the positivity.
Overall, just make sure that they know no matter what, you are there for them. That is one of the biggest indicators that we see at Inside Out Youth Services, is that if a child's parent says, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, I am your parent and I care about you and I love you, that can be huge in just developing kind of that like baseline self-esteem.
Remember that self-esteem challenges in teens can sometimes be associated with other mental health challenges like depression. If you're concerned about your teen and think they need more support, you can reach out to Colorado Crisis Services for help or advice. Also, Colorado's I Matter program offers up to 6 free counseling sessions for youth. Go to imattercolorado.org for more info. You can also find links to other great resources to support your teen in the description box with this video and at forwardtogetherco.com.